Hello and welcome to Agape English Language Institute's live broadcast about studying English. And we're eager to welcome lots of viewers and hear your questions about English and hear your ideas about studying English by yourself. And today we have one of our favorite teachers here to join us. That's Chris DeBose. So Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you, Darren. Glad to be with you.
Well, thank you. So, could you introduce yourself a little bit?
My name is Chris DeBose. I have a master's degree in teaching English as a second language, and I've taught English for 30 years now in Mississippi and Georgia and South Carolina, as well as in Japan and in Africa.
Wow, that's quite a spread. You've been to lots of places.
Love to travel.
And how long have you been teaching with Agape English Language Institute now?
8 years.
Okay, so you've been here a long time, and the students all love you, I've heard. I always hear that. So I didn't introduce myself. My name is Darren Jansen, and I've lived in Greenville, South Carolina for many years, and I also lived in the northeast of China for 8 years. And so I love Chinese food, and I love Chinese culture, and I love teaching English. So. And I also love the Chinese language, so that kind of gives me an insight into language study, especially language study by myself, because most of my Chinese study I do by myself. Nobody really helps me with my Chinese, generally speaking. And I think that's probably the way it is with many of our viewers, as they're studying English by themselves. And so I'd like to discuss with you today what are some techniques, some ideas of how to study English on your own when you don't have a teacher, and make it fun and interesting and sustainable. So Chris, do you have any great ideas of how our friends can study English by themselves?
I think it depends on your level. If you're a beginner and you're starting to learn English, one thing you can do is look up the words for different pieces of furniture or different places around your house and tape the word to your couch or tape the word to your cabinet. Then as you're moving about your house, you can begin to learn those nouns.
Okay. Yeah. I did that when I was a beginning Chinese student in China. Taped the pinyin, and also the two-character version of all of the words all over the house. It was people who came to my house would always learn Chinese in the. And before we go on, I should introduce our other dear teacher, Veronica, who just came in. So this is Veronica, also a teacher at Agape English Language Institute. And Veronica, will you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, yes. My name is Veronica, and I've been teaching here at Agape. I've taught at the schools in Greenville and Columbia, so I've been doing that about 4 or 5 years.
Okay, great. And what parts of the world have you lived in?
I spent 1 month in Mexico when I was in college studying Spanish, and then I lived in Colombia, South America for 4 months, just practicing some more Spanish, and that's actually when I first started teaching English. And then I think it's almost 3 years ago now. I spent a year teaching English in China. I taught math and science and leadership and conversational English.
Okay, wow, nice. So you and Chris have both been to many places.
Yeah.
So as Chris, maybe you can continue. You just gave us the suggestion if you're a beginning level English speaker and you're trying to study English by yourself, and maybe you don't have the time or the money right now to go and have a professional English teacher teach you for a couple hours a day, but you really want to improve your English and you're working by yourself, and you suggested to post some words on items in the house, and I was saying that's a great idea, and I've done that with Chinese as well. What were you going to say after that? Go ahead, continue, Chris.
Well, now we live in a very interconnected world, and so you can always get English books and read the newspaper online, movies, TV shows. So those kinds of things with subtitles or without, depending on your level, can also be helpful for natural pronunciation as well as things like idioms that come out in movies and TV shows.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, it's really incredible how technology has affected a person's language study. When I first went to China, it was still kind of a dream for me to be able to watch a complete movie on the computer. That still seemed out of the ability of technology. And within a couple of years, I saw my Chinese friends watching Chinese TV shows on the Youku, the Chinese version of YouTube. And that has really revolutionized my study, is watch those TV shows. And yeah, that's incredible. You can get newspapers. You can get whatever media you would like. So the technology is really awesome to help with language study. What particular resources or maybe not resources, but would you suggest our friends watch movies in English or what?
Now, I'm not someone who watches soap operas, but I have recommended that for others only because the dialogue is pretty simple. It's usually not complicated, but it's very natural and there's a lot of interaction. Mm-hmm. So if you can bear to watch soap operas, I think those are helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Veronica, what were you saying?
And soap operas, a lot of times they repeat the storyline. Mm-hmm. So if you miss it the first time, it'll come across again, and so hopefully you'll be able to pick it up the second or sometimes third time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also with soap operas, they have to create like 30 hours of content within one season, and so they don't have the money for all the special effects.
Yes.
So what they have money for is good actors and talking, lots of talking. So yeah, I much prefer watching a soap opera rather than a movie for the sake of language learning. Mm-hmm. It's much easier. You can learn so much more, I think. Do you have any ideas of something you might recommend or no?
I don't have a specific name, but another thing that I did when I lived in Japan and was trying to learn Japanese mostly on my own, I had a tutor, but mostly on my own, is watch an American show that I'm familiar with. For example, they got Little House on the Prairie in Japan, but instead of having subtitles, it was dubbed in Japanese, so the characters were speaking Japanese. But I was familiar with the general story and familiar with the culture, so I could concentrate just on the words. I know others, friends of mine, have watched Sesame Street. Even adults have watched Sesame Street in the target language.
Yeah. If you know the context, often the words will make a lot more sense. I remember the first time that I really started to read something of substance and I was understanding it was I read the first chapter of Genesis in the Chinese Bible, and I read the whole first chapter in one sitting. And before that, I'd barely done any reading at all before. And so when I finished that chapter, I was just amazed. I was like, I can't believe that I just read an entire chapter of
Yeah.
and it was because I was familiar with the story, and the words that I knew kind of melded in with the words I didn't know yet, and it just made sense. And that was really a freeing moment when I realized I could actually read. So yeah, that's a great idea, to pick up something you're already familiar with in your own language and read it in translation. That's great. Yeah, Veronica, what kind of suggestions would you have, ways for people to study if they're not able to have a teacher at the moment?
Well, going along with what y'all are saying, I think the internet does have a lot of resources that you can use. There's a lot of different apps for your phone that you can get. I have a couple for learning Chinese or for learning Spanish. Duolingo is a good one, Duolingo. I think it's a picture of a bird, and it's a bright green background. And so that one's pretty good. It does a lot with vocabulary and grammar.
Could you explain how to use that?
Well, you would just go to like for example, I have an iPhone, so I would just go to the App Store. It's free. I think you can upgrade if you want to, but they have a level that's for free, and you just download that onto your phone, and so you can use it whenever you want to. And it's pretty good because it goes through the different stages, and so it'll start out on the easier stuff. And it's kind of like they'll teach you the different vocabulary or the different grammar, and then they'll give you some practice. And it's a few different activities like fill in the blank or type in the right word or say the right word. And you have to do those correctly in order to pass the level and go to the next level. So it's kind of cool like that. And usually they're very short, so you have a good sense of accomplishment. You're like, oh, yay, I finished. So that's good.
And that's also available for English learners.
Yes, they have all kinds of different languages, yes.
Is that a paid service or free?
It has both. You can get the free one, and it would be like the basics. And if you want to do more after you finish that, you can pay for the paid service. Yeah. And so there was another one. You can just search different learn English apps on your phone, and you can come up with. There's a lot of different ones. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, any other ideas of things that you've done in language learning that has worked for you, or something you'd suggest for the students?
There are a couple different websites. www.ello.org, 3 L's. That's a good one to practice listening. It really is just a lot of different interviews, and they're about all kinds of different subjects. And so people are just having a conversation about a certain topic. And usually it's pretty short, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. And then they give you some vocabulary and also some comprehension questions. So that's also very good for listening for a good accent, for good pronunciation, and also for learning new slang and idioms, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that one is very nice, and the lessons on there are not scripted. The people just speak freely, and so you'll hear a lot of really natural speech, and also you'll hear people saying things like like natural pauses in conversation, and one thing that's really nice is they have the transcript below. You can read everything the people are saying. That's really nice as well.
Yes, that's good. Yeah. And
Different activities, like a quiz, a listening quiz, and everything. I've often used that for people I'm teaching.
yeah, yeah, it's good. And I found out that more recently they started, they'll have like, instead of an interview, it's a conversation, but it's about things that, like, if you move to a new country, it'll be a situation that you will have to deal with, like ordering a pizza or going to a job interview or what to do at the grocery store. And so it's common ways to have a conversation in those kind of situations. So they have the interviews, and then they also have kind of like a lesson for a few things. So.
Oh, nice.
One other thing I was thinking about is just depending on where you are, grab people around you. If you know of native English speakers that you can chat with, that's not a paid teacher, but you can practice English speaking with them. Sometimes the American consulate or the British Council will have conversation evenings where you can just go and chat with people. Or if you have a common interest, you could go to an English-speaking church in your country and hear and speak English. Or if you're interested in photography, yeah, you could either online, email, chat room, or in real life speak with people.
Okay, yeah, and that brings up another point that I think is really helpful is Google Plus is really focused a lot on people who have different hobbies or different interests. And whatever your hobby is, there's probably a Google Plus community out there related to that hobby. And if you start talking to those people, you can probably find people who are willing to talk with you. You just strike up a chat with them and develop a online friendship, and maybe you can do Google Hangouts like this one here with those people and practice your English with them discussing the topic you like. And there are also forums or communities on Google Plus that are focused on English. I can't think of the names of the communities right now, but I'm a member of several of them. And people just introduce themselves on that community, and they can find English conversation partners there and do hangouts with them and practice their English. So that's a great way as well. The only downside to that is it might take some time to find someone who's really willing to talk with you online. But if you do, then that's a resource. You can develop a long-term friendship with that person potentially, and develop your English as well. One thing that I've started doing recently in my language learning is listening to podcasts. And if you have Android phone or a Apple phone, if you go to the podcast app, you can listen to podcasts in English or whatever language you would like. And if you're driving or riding your bicycle or wherever you are, you can listen to these language podcasts and learn something about the language. So that could be good for beginners if you listen to one that's focused on teaching English, or it could be good for advanced people if you listen to the BBC broadcast or the NPR podcast or something like that. So that's something I've really started doing a lot lately, is listening to podcasts, and that's incredibly helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. And the TED Talks are good also.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, there are many excellent TED Talks. I have a question for you guys that maybe you can answer for me. If I'm watching a movie and I'm going through a section where there are some words I don't understand, what should I do? Should I just go right through and watch the whole movie and enjoy the movie, or should I stop at every word I don't understand and look it up and then add it to my vocab list? What is your suggestion for watching movies or reading a book? If you're reading a book or watching a movie to study English, what should you do when you come across difficult words? Should you look all of them up and then try to memorize them?
My recommendation is somewhere between the two. I don't think you should look up every word, but if there's a repeated word that seems to continue to come up in the movie or the book that seems like an important word, then I would stop long enough to look up that word and carry on. But even native English speakers don't always understand every word of what they're reading when we're reading an academic topic or something, and it's better just to go on and try to get the main idea unless it's an important repeated topic.
Mm-hmm. Veronica, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. That's a good idea. And so whenever you come across a few words, you can write them down. You don't necessarily have to like stop the movie or, well, sometimes you might if you want to get the right spelling and everything like that. But you can write down the word or highlight the word if you're reading, like circle or underline in the book. And then after you finish reading, you'll have gotten the main idea. You know what the article is talking about. So then you can go back and look up the words and find out what they mean and basically add those to your vocabulary list to study for the future.
And I think that's a good point, what Veronica's saying, vocabulary list. Kind of make your own little dictionary. You have a notebook that's your ongoing vocabulary list, and wherever you find words that you want to remember, write them down, and then you can periodically review them.
And when you're watching a movie, do you suggest using the subtitles or no subtitles?
That's a good question. If you're at the beginner level, you probably want to use the subtitles just so that you can have a better idea of what's going on. Because it can get very frustrating if you're watching a movie for 30 minutes, an hour, and you have no idea what it's talking about. So in a case like that, I would suggest using the subtitles. But once you've been practicing your English a good bit and you feel comfortable with the language, I would try to watch the movie without the subtitles. And you can even maybe watch the movie the first time with subtitles and then watch it again after that without.
Good idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, those are great ideas for study. So we've heard several good ideas about study. We've heard watch movies, and especially like a TV show, like a soap opera. We also heard about some online resources like Duolingo and Ello. That's ELLLO.org or .com.
Yes,
I think
.org.
And then so online resources. We've also discussed finding a conversation partner, maybe at an English-speaking church or a English-speaking club or on a Google group. And then also we've discussed more about movies, what exactly you should do when you're watching the movie, whether you should look up all the words or likewise in a book, whether you should look up all the words. So I hope these things will be helpful to our friends out there, and we wish you the best in your English study. Do you guys have any final comments before we go off air?
Just want to say keep at it. Language learning is not something that happens overnight, but it's well worth the effort. So good luck with your language learning.
Yes.
Okay, and Veronica, you say ditto, the same?
I say ditto, yeah. Very good advice, yeah.
Chris said it very well. Okay,
Good.
well, thank you for joining us today and for discussing with us how you can study English on your own. And I really think you have some helpful advice for us. So, like I said at the beginning, we three work at Agape English Language Institute. We're a small English school in South Carolina, the United States, and we're proud to call Greenville and Columbia, those two cities, we're proud to call those two cities home. We hope you all can come visit us in Greenville and Columbia. Personally, I teach at the Greenville Agape, and I think Greenville is the best place in America. But we hope you guys can come visit us and come study English in America. But until we see you again, we hope you have the best luck in your English study, and take care.
Bye-bye.